fun debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to be clear, it's not because we are from UiTM we cancel the immigration debate, but we just wanted to argue about something that's much more radical. It's that we're going to argue about the restructuring of society and how we're going to restructure the idea of owning a home and how supposedly it affected the social mobility of people. We think this is problematic because home ownership or owning land is something that is a zero-sum game. That's where scarcity comes to the problem, where poor people might want to buy land, but it does not mean the rich will actually stop buying up land and stop buying these houses. We also believe that it impedes the fundamental rights that people have, and it causes social inequality because the rich are the ones who can buy up the premium lands and force all of the other lands within satellite cities to go up into a higher price. We think that is extremely harmful. What's our policy here? We believe that nobody should own land. We're going to stop alienating any form of land, and the government will control pricing into this. And in factoring pricing would also include other factors such as diversity, or probably things like the economic disparity when it comes to people, so that you can force the poor and the rich to live within the same area. I'm going to argue on several things, but first I'm going to argue why private ownership leads to the deprivation of these rights. Firstly, let's see how exactly this happened. Is that price fixing can be done by homeowners in many ways. The first way is that they charge exorbitant rates because they're able to buy houses in bulk. In form of what? Yes.
Terence, why can't all your policies such as like this diversity thing, rent control and price fixing all happen on our side as well without outlawing home ownership?
Because things like discriminating a person out of your race cannot be actually regulated by laws. Those kind of things cannot be controlled by the government because we are not in Minority Report, and I wear the wear that shirt better than you. But first, they buy property in bulk, therefore they are able to manipulate prices. And assuming that you are able to limit the number, answering these POIs at the same time, is that homeowners can act in a cartel-like manner by agreeing with other homeowners by creating probably associations and say that we should jack up prices within these areas in order to keep people out from this area. The problem is that, like I said earlier on, you can't monitor this cartel-like behavior, and they have no incentive to lower down these house prices if they are able to buy things in bulk. Why so? It's because they are able to withstand holding out these houses for long periods of time. The rich also are able to enter bigger markets and capitalize on it. So let's say I'm able to withhold houses for 5 years. But in between, I have the capital to actually advertise these prices in Singapore, in China, where we have businessmen who can afford these houses. That's where you see places like Kensington in London where areas are exclusively owned by Singaporean businessmen. Instead, that local Londoners aren't able to buy houses in this area because they can't afford it due to the capability of rich businessmen to hold out these places. The second level to this is that the value of lands, when left in private hands, is extremely harmful. Why so? Because the price of land is dependent on the premium, on how prestige the land is. And it's based on many social factors. Sometimes it may not be racial, but it's because some people assume that they have the privilege to live within an area where they don't have to see poverty. That means they can exclude they can actually demand the developers to build houses that only exclusively cater to their social class. But there's this new phenomena that happens in first world countries, especially in Europe. And this phenomena is called NIMBYism, or not in my backyard, where they think that they should not have immigrant communities who live within these areas and say that they should cancel out. Let's say, for example, I buy out several units within a condo, and I say that I would interview every single tenant. And I, as a racist homeowner, may say that you are not a suitable tenant to actually enter this residential area, but you cannot actually see what his intentions are. He may deny you based on several vague reasons, but if that person is racist and continuously want to actually exclude these racial minorities, he can do so by giving those kind of vague reasons. But let's look at the inverse. What about immigrant communities who just come to these areas, like probably the people from Algeria who decide to move to France instead? We still think it's extremely harmful when they have the capability to form enclaves instead. The problem here is that the problem when you form enclaves is that at the end of the day, they are less likely to integrate within the community and they are less likely to mix around with people from different racial backgrounds because they are able to get people to own homes within the same area. Under our policy instead, because governments distribute according to racial disparity or diversity within an area, you're able to redistribute the houses and the residential areas so that they're not forced into these enclaves and they're forced to integrate within the community. We don't want people to have the blanket power to actually allow prejudice at the end of the day, and we can't regulate the behavior. Now, the other problem here, why is this also important comes to several parts. Because firstly, is that the poor and the middle income are systematically excluded from buying houses or living in certain areas. And the problem with these areas is that most of them are within city centers or are in close proximity to city centers. Okay. That is why houses in PJ or Damansara are extremely high when it comes to price. That a fresh graduate cannot live within that area and are probably forced into buying low cost to actually rent instead rather than buy a house, or probably they are forced to actually move in an area in satellite areas that are even further. That means they have to commute and spend more money on that. Now, why is it so problematic? Because firstly, the poor are pushed into urban ghettos. They are only able to buy houses in areas where it's according to what has been fixed by developers in the first place, or how much did the rich actually jack up the prices within these areas. And scientific studies has shown that high density areas with limited economic opportunity force people into crime. And this source problems would actually further incentivize the rich to actually exclude people to live within these areas. But let's take the best case scenario, that somehow a fresh grad is able to get a decent job, let's assume he can pay rent, but the problem is you let him live on the edge every month. He struggles to pay rent. Studio apartment in Publica costs 1,200 per month. He's not able to afford the simple things in life around him. He's not able to afford what other people around him enjoys. But our model allows the government to control pricing of houses and allows him to buy stuff. What this also allows is the idea of gentrification, where businesses are able to put prices of items around them according to the price they assume what the homeowners around them actually earn per month. We think it's extremely harmful when you let everyone suffer because a few people think that they can afford to buy expensive houses.